Trinidad, Colorado sits as a red brick sentinel at the foot of Fisher's Peak, a town whose very bones were shaped by the rhythmic thrum of the Santa Fe Railway. Long before the rails arrived, this was a place of passage along the mountain branch of the Santa Fe Trail, but the arrival of the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe in 1878 transformed a rugged outpost into a vital industrial hub. The railroad didn't just visit Trinidad, it anchored it, turning the Purgatory River Valley into a theater of steam, soot, and ambition. Because the town sat at the base of the grueling climb toward Raton Pass, it became a necessary staging ground for the most powerful locomotives of the fleet. Heavy helper engines were stationed there, waiting to couple onto the backs of massive freight and passenger trains to shove them up the 3.5% grade, one of the steepest and most demanding stretches of mainline in the United States. The relationship between the town and the tracks was symbiotic and often chaotic. As the railroad expanded, it unlocked the vast coal fields of the Los Alamos County, feeding a global hunger for fuel and creating a sprawling network of spur lines that snaked into the surrounding canyons. This brought a surge of immigrants from Italy, Greece, and Eastern Europe, who stepped off the passenger platforms and into the mines, their lives governed by the whistle of the trains that hauled their labor away. The depot became the town's heartbeat, a place where the luxury of the super chief with its sleek stainless steel cars and Hollywood stars rubbed shoulders with the grime-streaked engineers of coal drags. The architecture of Trinidad reflects this era of black gold and iron rail, with ornate Victorian buildings funded by the commerce that the BNSF made possible. Even as the era of steam gave way to diesel and the coal mines began to shudder, the railroad remained the town's defining pulse. Today, the roar of BNSF freight trains still echoes off the canyon walls, and the Amtrak Southwest Chief glides through twice a day, the silver ghost tracing the same path that pioneers took. To stand on Commercial Street is to hear the low, mournful lowing of the horn in the distance, a reminder that Trinidad was built on the promise of the rail and continues to be defined by the steel ribbons that tie the high desert to the rest of the world. Raton, New Mexico exists because the mountain demanded a gateway, and the railroad provided the key to unlock it. Nestled at the base of the formidable Raton Pass, the town was born from the dust of the Santa Fe Trail. In the late 19th century, as the tracks pushed southward toward the Rio Grande Valley, the steep grades of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains presented a Herculean challenge. Raton became the essential staging point, a town of helper engines and crews who specialized in the brutal physics of steam and gravity. For decades, the town's economy and its very identity were tethered to the locomotives that paused there to gather strength before ascending the highest point on the Santa Fe mainline. The arrival of the rails in 1879 turned a modest landscape of pinon and juniper into a roaring industrial center. While the neighboring peaks offered beauty, the ground beneath them offered coal, and the railroad was the only way to move it. Spurs radiated out from Raton, reaching the canyons to tap the rich veins of the Vermejo Park and Gardiner mines. The depot became a melting pot of cultures as miners and railroads from across the globe arrived to work on the rails or descend into the earth. The historic First Street grew up facing the tracks, its red brick facades and ornate hotels serving as a front row seat to the constant parade of freight and passenger trains such as the El Capitan. As the years progressed, the transition from steam to diesel changed the mechanics of the climb, but it never diminished the importance of the pass. The sound of the railroad and the rhythmic chatter of wheels and the low resonant hum of engines idling in the yard became the background music for life in Raton. Even as coal mining faded, the steel ribbons remained a vital artery for transcontinental commerce. Today, the majestic mission-style depot still stands as a testament to that golden age, serving as a critical stop for the Amtrak Southwest Chief. To walk through Raton today is to feel the weight of that history, where the smell of mountain air is still occasionally punctuated by the scent of diesel and the distant echoing whistle that signals another climb to the clouds. Las Vegas, New Mexico serves as a living monument to the transformative power of the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railway. While the town was founded in 1835 as a traditional Spanish land-grant settlement centered around a plaza, the arrival of the first steam locomotive on July 4, 1879, fundamentally split the community's geography and destiny. The railroad opted to bypass the original Old Town Plaza to maintain a more efficient grade, establishing its depot 1 mile to the east. This created a new town characterized by Victorian architecture, wide streets, and a bustling mercantile district that quickly eclipsed the old plaza in economic importance. By the late 19th century, Las Vegas had evolved into one of the largest and most prosperous cities in the Southwest, serving as a primary shipping point for wool and livestock, and a notorious haven for Wild West characters like Doc Holliday and Jesse James. The crown jewel of this railroad boom was the La Castanada Hotel, which opened on New Year's Day in 1899. Named for Pedro de Castanada de Najera, the chronicler of the 1540 Coronado expedition, the hotel was a pivotal project for the Fred Harvey Company and the BNSF. Designed by Frederick Warrig, it was the first of the great Harvey houses to be built in its Mission Revival style, serving as the architectural prototype for later icons like the Alvarado Hotel in Albuquerque and El Tovar in Grand Canyon. The U-shaped brick building featured a massive 500-foot arcade facing the tracks, ensuring that passengers could step directly from their Pullman cars into a world of civilized hospitality. The hotel was famous for its Fred Harvey girls, the strictly disciplined waitstaff who brought refined service to the frontier, and for its massive bakery which supplied bread to other Fred Harvey locations along the line. La Castanada's historical significance was cemented just months after its opening when it hosted the first reunion of the Rough Riders in June 1899, attended by Theodore Roosevelt. Despite its grandeur, the hotel's fortunes declined as automobile travel and the 1905 Berlin cutoff diverted rail traffic away from the northern route. The hotel officially closed in 1948 and narrowly escaped the wrecking ball that claimed other sister hotels. For 70 years, the building suffered through various stages of decay and partial use as apartments, gaining the local nickname the Nasty Casty for its dive bar. However, in 2014, the property was purchased by preservationist Alan Affeldt and his wife Tina Meehan, who led a meticulous multi-million-dollar restoration. Reopened in 2019, La Castanada once again serves as a functioning hotel and restaurant, anchoring the revitalization of the Railroad Avenue Historic District in Las Vegas. We caught westbound Amtrak 3 making an on-time arrival at Las Vegas under clear blue skies. Along the wind-scoured plains and high desert mesas between Raton and Las Vegas, New Mexico, a line of steel sentinels stands as a defiant holdout against the march of the digital age. These are the Semaphores of the old Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe, the last of their kind on any major American mainline. To see them is to witness a mechanical language that has all but vanished from the modern landscape. Unlike the silent, unmoving bulbs of modern color light signals, these semaphores are expressive and kinetic. They communicate through the physical movement of the heavy metal arm or blade, painted in stark shades of yellow and black, slicing through the thin mountain air to tell a story of the track ahead. The stretch of track from Colfax and Maury counties is a lonely, majestic corridor where the horizon is dominated by the looming shadows of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. In this vastness, the semaphores act as a heartbeat for the rail. When a train approaches, the silence of the prairie is broken by the sharp metallic clack of a motor engaging. The blade pivots upward at a 45-degree angle for approach, or snaps to a vertical position for clear. Its colored glass spectacles, red, yellow, and green, sliding over a small lamp to cast a glow that can be seen for miles across the dark New Mexico sky. It is a choreography of gears and gravity that has remained largely unchanged since the early 20th century. For crews of the Amtrak Southwest Chief, these signals are a nostalgic bridge to the past. As the silver cars snake through the curves near Wagon Mound or past the lonely sidings at Watrous, the engineers look for the familiar silhouettes of the upper quadrant blades against the turquoise sky. There is a tangible sense of history in watching a signal drop to the horizontal stop position after the last car passes, a mechanical finality that feels more honest than a fading light. They represent an era when the railroad was a tactile, physical force, and when the safety of 1,000 tons of steel depended upon the reliable swing of a painted arm. Maintaining these relics is an act of devotion in a world of fiber optics and satellite tracking. Because they rely on moving parts exposed to the brutal extremes of New Mexico weather, from blinding summer heat to the piercing winter winds that howl off the peaks, they require a level of care that modern systems do not, yet they endure. To a traveler looking out the window of a passing lounge car, they are more than just traffic lights. They are the ghosts of Santa Fe, still standing guard over the high plains and signaling the way forward for those who still prefer the rhythmic clatter of the rails to the rush of the interstate. As of 2026, the final chapter for these mechanical sentinels is drawing to a close. There are currently 11 active semaphore signals remaining in service on the Raton Subdivision, specifically clustered in a remote stretch between Culmer and Wagon Mound, New Mexico. These signals represent the absolute last stand of the upper quadrant semaphores on any Class 1 main line in the United States. While dozens once dotted the route between Raton and Las Vegas, recent modernization efforts have significantly thinned their ranks. Because these signals govern a line that only sees 2 daily trains, Amtrak's Southwest Chief 3 and 4, they have survived far longer than they would on a busy freight corridor. However, since the parts are no longer manufactured, BNSF typically replaces them as they suffer mechanical failures. To see them today is to catch a final glimpse of the 2020s technology still performing its original job in the high desert. Lamy, New Mexico stands as a quiet, sun-drenched testament to the stubborn geography of the American West and the pragmatic engineering of the adjacent Topeka and Santa Fe Railway. While Santa Fe was the intended crown jewel of the line, the steep grades and treacherous terrain around the surrounding mountains forced the railroad's engineers to make a difficult choice in 1880. Rather than bringing the main line directly into the capital city, they laid the steel 18 miles to the south, creating a junction point in a dusty basin that would eventually bear the name of Archbishop Jean-Baptiste Lamy. From that moment, Lamy became the indispensable gateway, the small but vital lung through which the lifeblood of Santa Fe's commerce and tourism flowed. The importance of Lamy to the BNSF was rooted in its role as a transfer point. Because the old Santa Fe Trail was too steep for heavy transcontinental trains, a short spur line was built to connect the capital to the main line in Lamy. For nearly a century, every traveler, politician, and artist bound for the plaza had to first step off the grand transcontinental expresses, the Chief, the Super Chief, or the El Capitan, and onto the platform at Lamy. Here, the desert air would hit them as they waited for the Santa Fe shuttle or a Harvey House bus. The town became a stage where the ruggedness of the New Mexico frontier met the sophisticated elements of mid-century rail travel. Central to this importance was the construction of El Ortiz, one of the most unique hotels in the Fred Harvey Company chain. Built in 1910 to resemble a traditional Spanish hacienda, it served as a cozy, high-standard sanctuary for weary travelers. The presence of the Harvey girls and the mission-style architecture of the depot, which still stands today, cemented Lamy's status as a curated entry point into the land of enchantment. The railroad didn't just move freight through Lamy, it used the station to sell the romance of the Southwest to the rest of the country. Even as the prestige of rail passenger travel Rail declined and El Ortiz was eventually demolished, Lamy's strategic necessity remained. It sits at the foot of the grueling climb to Glorieta Pass, serving as a landmark for engineers navigating the winding curves and changing elevations of the high desert. Today, the station remains one of the most iconic stops on the Amtrak Southwest Chief. Though the town itself is small, its silhouette, defined by the red-tiled roof of the depot and the vast open sky, continues to represent the enduring legacy of a railroad that had to bypass a city to conquer a territory.